Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Hmm.
Today, we are going far, far away to Nigeria.
Sounds fun.
It's going to be interesting. So we're going to be looking at some food prices in Nigeria,
Okay.
specifically as we get closer and closer to the Christmas season. So we've got this article here, uh, price of of rice, beans, tomatoes,
Wow, that's a mouthful.
other food commodities this week. And this was published pretty recently on November 18th, 2024.
Okay.
So very, very fresh. And basically, we're going to dive into this and figure out what's happening with these food prices.
Hmm.
And, even if you're not in Nigeria, even if you're,
Right.
over here in the States or in Europe or wherever you are in the world,
Yeah,
this is still relevant.
absolutely. Because,
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see how food and culture are so interconnected, especially during the holidays. It's
Yeah.
not just about, sitting down to a meal. It's about the traditions. It's about the shared experiences.
For sure, for sure. So, this article talks about this thing called the Christmas surge
Yeah.
in food prices. And this is basically, as we get closer and closer to Christmas, the demand for staple foods,
Mm.
like rice or beans,
Mm.
tomatoes, all that stuff,
Mhm.
it just skyrockets.
Makes sense.
So you have people stocking up, maybe doing some bulk buying,
Uh-huh.
Some people might even start to panic buy a little bit,
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
you know.
Definitely.
But I think even aside from like the panic buying side of things,
Yeah.
you have to think about the cultural significance
Oh.
of this too.
For sure.
So Christmas in Nigeria is a huge celebration. You have these big family gatherings and feasts. And, certain foods like rice become super important for the traditional dishes that they make.
Yeah.
And when that demand spikes, naturally the prices are going to follow.
That's how it works.
Big time.
Supply and demand.
It's kind of like they go Thanksgiving here in the U.S.
Yeah.
I think about turkey prices.
Oh, yeah.
They go crazy
Absolutely.
around that time. But going back to Nigeria, um, the article also mentions that a lot of the traders in the local markets are starting to get a little concerned
I bet.
about these potential price hikes.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, they're in kind of a tricky spot. On the one hand, they got to keep up with the demand.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's also the risk of supply chain disruptions. Things like transportation issues or bad weather can really mess things up.
For sure.
And that's just going to drive the prices up even more.
Yeah, it's a tough call for those traders. Like, do they raise prices knowing that everybody needs these staples?
Right.
Or do they risk running out completely?
Tough choices.
Yeah, and this kind of leads into another layer of this whole discussion,
Yeah.
which is the role of the government.
Okay.
So the article talks about how some people are calling for government intervention to monitor what's happening in the markets
Yeah.
and prevent any unfair pricing practices.
Interesting.
Your thoughts?
Well, it's a tricky one, isn't it? When you're talking about essential goods like food, especially.
Yeah.
There's always this debate, should the market just do its thing? Or does the government need to step in to protect consumers from price gouging? It's complex. There's no easy answers. There's arguments on both sides.
Yeah.
Some folks, they say that price controls can actually lead to shortages
Right.
because if the suppliers aren't making enough profit, they're not going to be as motivated to produce. But then others say, sometimes it's absolutely necessary. You got to protect vulnerable populations. You can't have them getting priced out of essential goods.
Yeah, it really makes you think about the balance between those, economic principles and social well-being.
True.
Like, where do you draw the line? But let's get into some of the specifics in this article
Okay.
because they actually list some current prices and it's kind of eye-opening.
I'm curious.
So, for example, a bag of My Choice rice, which is a pretty popular brand over there, is going for $96,000.
Whoa.
I know, right?
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
And to put that in perspective, that's like $200 US.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a pretty significant expense,
Huh.
especially when you consider that rice is such a staple food in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
And it's not just rice. A large basket of fresh tomatoes
Okay.
is currently going for $180,000.
No way.
Yeah. Which is like $380 US.
You can make a lot of pasta sauce with that.
Right. Like you could make so much. And tomatoes are a key ingredient in so many Nigerian dishes.
Yeah.
So this price increase is going to directly impact people's ability to prepare those traditional meals, especially
Yeah.
during the holidays.
Definitely.
And then even beans, which is another state. A 50-kilogram bag of sweet pure butter beans
Okay.
now costs $160,000.
Really?
Yeah, so that's about $340 US.
So it's all going up.
Yeah, I mean,
It's wild.
this kind of highlights how interconnected the global food system really is. We're focusing on Nigeria here.
Right.
But these issues of supply and demand, price fluctuations, economic vulnerability, this affects everybody all over the world. It really does.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes you think about the food staples in your own area and how those prices have changed over time.
Yeah.
And I think more importantly, it raises the question about how people are coping.
Especially those with limited income.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it's not just about the numbers, it's about the human impacts as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing here in Nigeria is almost like this perfect storm brewing.
Okay.
You've got the holiday season driving up demand.
Yeah.
You've got concerns about potential supply issues. And then you have this debate about government intervention just hanging over everything.
Like a lot.
It's a complex situation. There's no easy solutions.
It's definitely food for thought. But I want to leave everybody with one final thought.
Okay.
As we wrap up here. What if we think beyond just government price controls?
Interesting.
What about community-based solutions like food banks? Or what about initiatives that help to support local farmers, to boost food production and create more stable supply chains?
That's a good point.
It's a complex issue, but it deserves our attention and consideration.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.